Got some coffee here. Got the Bible here. Not nearly enough coffee. So this Bible study coffee break will need to be quick. But the passage in front of us today is 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 is obviously the opening salvo that Paul has for the Church of Christ at Corinth, a very, very, very troubled, precious but troubled group of people. And among some of the things that Paul says here in the beginning is this interesting verse number 11. I have been informed concerning you, my brethren, by Chloe's people. So Paul is letting them know that he received information about them that needs some addressing. Little what, little why here. What Paul is talking about is receiving information from a reliable, that's a key word in this sentence I'm putting together. Paul is talking about receiving information from a reliable third-party source. That's plain and simple what is going on here. Now why that has kind of filled my thoughts of late is because of this really peculiar situation that many people, I'll say, maybe most, but I'll stick with many, are of the opinion of that if you ever have anything that needs to be addressed with anyone, your duty, your responsibility, and your honors at stake, if you don't go to this person in the strictest of privacy. A lot of folks will call up Matthew chapter 18 about going to your brother between you and him alone. And Matthew 18 certainly has a place in conflict resolution, obviously. It has a place in conflict resolution. But it is not the only model for all conflicts that need to be resolved. Matthew chapter 18 talks about somebody who commits a sin against you individually, privately. If it's a matter that can be resolved privately, hey, I mean, that's best case scenario, right? Right. Needless to say, not all matters fit into that nice, tidy box. And you don't have to take my word for any of this. You can just look right here, again at 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 11, where Paul says, hey, there is something that I know about you that I learned from Chloe's people. Other translations say Chloe's house, Chloe's household. I like them all. They all essentially get the same point across. But Paul is saying, I have some reliable information. It's trustworthy. I trust it. And based on this reliable information that I've gotten, now footnote here, that footnote is Paul is an inspired person. All right. So this whole matter is foolproofed in a sense because Paul is inspired. But principle stands alone. We don't have any inspired people today. And if we had to be inspired to fit the Bible into our modern usage today, well, then it would be impossible to do. So these words have to have some application to those of us who are not inspired, because none of us are inspired. Got me? So Paul is saying there's a precedent for hearing something about somebody and saying, hey, I heard this about you, and we need to address it. We need to bring it up. And Paul does so in a public way. He writes them a letter. He sends this letter to them. This letter is public in nature. Elsewhere in Scripture, Paul speaks to the whole need to swap and share these inspired letters. So what we've got going on here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 11 is not, the liberals' favorite situation where you have an issue with somebody or with a church and you go to them in the strictest of privacy and address that only in that strictest of privacy kind of way. That's not what's happening here. That is a sick, twisted game. I know a lot of words, and I'm using the word I want to use here. Game. To kind of get out from the spotlight, to dodge the real issue. Just play this out for just a second. I don't want this to be too long of a video, but just play it out for a second. What if Paul got this information from Chloe's people or Chloe's house, and Paul says, I need to bring it up with you, and a whole bunch of other people would have said, hey, Paul, that's not right. If you've got an issue with the church at Corinth, you need to go to them privately. Well, how many problems would have been resolved? Lots less, right? Lots less. If that's the only way of doing things, then what you're going to have is a lot more problems, a lot more unresolved problems, which, by the way, is exactly the end game of, again, a lot of these left-leaning brethren. Not all, I won't say. I'm tempted to say most, but I'll just leave it at a lot. A lot of people want to hide under the procedure of it all. Wait a minute. You heard that we do that in our worship service. Well, did you see it firsthand? Well, no. Maybe I did see it firsthand, maybe not, But why is that material to the discussion? Paul knows some things about the church at Corinth, and I suppose Paul could have been picked at and kind of poked. Paul, how much of this stuff that you know about Corinth, how much of this stuff did you witness firsthand? Well, probably a lot of it, possibly a good bit of it, but certainly not all of it. But that's not the point. Paul receives this information from again, I'll emphasize this word because it's key, reliable source. And Paul says, we got to work on this. And he does so in a public letter that was likely delivered by an amanuensis or an associate of Paul. Something that Paul understood did not need to be kept in the strictest of confidence or in the strictest of privacy. Paul says this is a matter that calls for a public airing. After all, these people were doing this in their public worship services. This is the thing. A public sin or a public problem has every right to be handled publicly. What this church was doing in their public worship service was a matter of public record, and could therefore be discussed in these terms that you see the Apostle Paul doing right here in a really neat verse that introduces us to Chloe. We don't know this person or the household here, but what an important minister, what an important servant of the Lord here. Because this person help the Apostle Paul, help this church, and it's a blessing, really. Those who are interested in resolving conflicts won't strain at every procedural decision that's made. People who really truly want to resolve conflicts will set all of that bickering and parsing aside, that game, and they'll get right down to resolving conflicts. As we have seen in this quick Bible study coffee break in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse number 11. I have been informed concerning you, my brethren, by Chloe's people, that there are quarrels among you. And Paul picks it up right there and says, for Christ's sake, this needs to stop. What a lesson. What a powerful point to start a powerful book. Hope it blesses your life thinking of it. Thanks for spending a bit of time with me as we have a few sips of coffee and look at a few scriptures from the Bible. Love you very much. Take care, y'all.